Good evening. Hopefully that's live. Hi. Welcome to my start again. Welcome to my weekly live streamed Node-RED development work. I'm Nick O'Leary, project lead. If this is your first time joining, hi, great to have you. If you're on the Twitch stream, do say hi in the chat. If you're watching YouTube, do like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Always great to hear from you all. I already see some of you in the chat, which is great to see. The gang's all here. So, what's the plan for tonight? There's, a couple of different things we're going to look at. First up is really we're just trying to get the 1.3 release ready to ship the beta. It's really close. There's a couple little tidying up bits to do, which we may or may not get through tonight. So there's that. But I also want to set aside a bit of time. So if you're watching the replay on YouTube, I'm probably going to do some development work for the next majority of the time. But probably the last 10 minutes or so, I want to start talking about Node-RED 2.0, which is only 2 months away, as in April the 30th is when Node.js 10 reaches end of life. So that's the opportunity we're taking to ship Node-RED 2.0 when we drop support for for Node.js 8 and 10. But doing a major release is an opportunity for us to think about what other changes should we make in a major version release, not to needlessly break things, but sometimes there are little tweaks we want to make that, changing a default behavior, that type of thing that we can only really do across a major version change. So we're starting to think about what those things are, and starting to capture them, more importantly. So I've made a start and I've got some things in draft, and I was going to spend a bit of time getting some more of that stuff written down with you guys, so you can see the sorts of things we're thinking, but also invite contribution and suggestion as to what else we should consider. But more immediately, let's just think about Node-RED 1.3. That's what we're doing. That's what's next. So where are we at? Well, let me find the right window. I have too many windows open. Once I found the right window, I can share it with you and we can all have a look. There we are. Yeah, you can see the chat now. So where are we at? We've got a bunch of pull requests, a lot of pull requests. As usual, there's kind of this idea of a long tail of pull requests. I think once you get, frankly, if they're not from this year, then perhaps we can stretch back into December. Basically, you can see here there's a jump from, you can't see if I hover and it obscures it. It jumps here from 27th of December to the 7th of April, so almost a year old now. To be frank, I think most pull requests that are almost a year, if not more than a year old, are likely to kind of just sit and gather dust. And at some point we should do a tidy up of salvage what we can salvage from that. But if we haven't merged it yet, chances are there are reasons and we need to revisit. But I think anything we know, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pull requests from late December to today. There's the work Steve did to replace the Ace text editor in Node-RED with the Monaco one. That's a great example of a change we're just not going to do in 1.x. That's a big change that we'll put into 2.0, or at least we will expose in 2.0. We've still got to come up with a plan for how we do that migration, because for all the great work Steve has done to make it as seamless as possible, inevitably there will be some nodes that use features of the ACE editor that we use today, not using any of the standard APIs we provide. So the Monaco stuff can't be a invisible drop-in replacement. So anyway, there's that. There's this piece of work, which is actually a huge piece of work. It's a rework of the German translations, which touches a lot. I mean, it's root and branch of a lot of the translations have been reworked. A huge bit of work. Dave and I are not in a position to review and approve German translations, so we're hoping. I know there's a good community of German users who collaborate on these translations, so hopefully we're going to get some input from them. Whether that gets into the beta or not, I don't know. That's the sort of thing that can be updated between the beta and the final release. Then we come up to these two pull requests. I'm going to group them together. So this is the work that I've spoken about on previous streams, making it easier to making it easier to use extra npm modules in the function node. So this pull request is an initial draft implementation of it from Nishiyama-san at Hitachi, and then this one up here is basically I've taken his pull request and then completed some of the work I've done on this stream is applied on top of the changes in this pull request. So yeah, those two will kind of get swept up together. And in fact, the function node, this one is pretty much good to merge. And then this final one is a different pull request with other changes to the German translations. And I believe from a comment either late yesterday or today, Haikoku has said basically he's rolled the changes that this one proposed into his big rework. So so in fact that pull request will probably can get closed off once this other one is merged. So we're in pretty good shape in terms of outstanding work. Issues, there's a bunch of issues. A lot of the easy ones have been kind of ticked off and dealt with. There are some which are bigger, sort of more systemic, which are going to need more work. Maybe even a 1.4 release if we want to get them released in the 1.x stream. But there's a couple of things here that one we can have a quick look at tonight, and there was some other feedback in the forum about keyboard shortcut handling, which I thought might be a nice self-contained thing to have 20 minutes on tonight and see if we can improve based on their feedback. So yeah, if there's anything else in the chat you guys would like to see or chat about, then please do shout. Hi, it's Geoseph. Yeah, I think I'm getting that right. This is the perils of doing live streams, is just trying to get people's usernames right. But yeah, glad you could join us. Glad you managed to catch the live stream. And yeah, you're welcome. I enjoy Node-RED stuff. It's what I do. So let's see what's going on. So we've got. Oh no, we don't need that one yet. I'm lost. I've already clicked on the wrong thing. Yeah, so we've got a couple different things to look at. In fact, that one is already fixed. I think we're just going to look at the keyboard shortcut stuff to begin with. And yeah, let me just check. I'm getting pinged. Why am I getting pinged? No. I'm not getting pinged. All right, so let's go look at the keyboard shortcut stuff. Let me just get my environment set up. So I'm in the dev branch. I'm all up to date. So I run grunt dev, which builds the code and watches for changes, rebuilds it automatically when needed, and yeah, does all sorts of things like that. Let's pull up the editor. Just waiting for grunt dev to get things running. Right, so that's now running. Yeah, so it's GGSF question about the ETA of 1.3. Well, tonight the plan is to try and get some of the finishing touches to 1.3. It's, I expect the beta to come out in the next day or two. And then we'll talk a bit more about what the plan is for when the beta becomes the stable release. So yeah, that's the plan. And you mentioned the npm support and function nodes. I was just saying that's one of the last pull requests, in fact this pull request, to merge. And a change I have made just today, having reviewed it, is it's a feature that will have to be enabled via the settings file initially. So it's going to be an opt-in feature, partly because it's the sort of feature that some of the people who embed Node-RED in their own applications might not want their end users having that free range. And to ease their upgrade, it's easier for them just to be able to upgrade without worrying about what other settings do they need to set to turn off features they don't want. So certainly for 1.3, it will be a feature that you have to turn on via your settings file, and our default settings file will include the right entry in it for you to set to true. And then in 2.0, we can review it and decide actually for 2.0 we can turn it on by default. So that's the plan for the npm support in the function node. Right, what are we doing in keyboard shortcut handling? So there's so some feedback we got. I fixed a bug over the weekend where you couldn't have a keyboard shortcut that involved the plus key for reasons to do with keyboard mapping and how keyboard events appear. And the fix I've done is okay if your keyboard layout is it's okay. It won't work for every keyboard layout because it has to make some assumptions as to where the plus key is on your keyboard. There's a bigger piece of work which I'm not going to try and do in 1.3, which is to rework our keyboard handling, because keyboard events have evolved since a lot of this code was written, and there are better ways for us to detect exactly what key is being pressed that will work cross-browser or more cross-browser and do a better job of it. But anyway, that's not the bug. What the bug is okay, you can see here I've got deploy flows still set to the default of Control D or Command D, because we cheat and so we don't have to be OS dependent. We treat Control and the Command key on Mac as synonymous. So again, it's one of those things. I'm still waiting for some to raise the issue complaining that we treat them like that, but no one has. But the bug that I want to, it's a usability thing rather than a bug, is let's say I set this keyboard shortcut to Control D, which is the same as I have on deploy flows. I can just do that. Now, when I come in here and I hit Control D, nothing. Is that expected? Got Control D there, Command D there. If I unassign that one, okay, that command is not working at all. Why is that? Interesting. Okay, so straight away, have I stumbled over a different bug? No. So Control C is working. Control D isn't. Why is Control D not working as a shortcut? And is that because of the bug that I want to go and fix? I mean, this is going to be typical if I've straight away chosen a bad example. What did I have it on? I had it on edit flow. Edit flow unassigned. okay, there's definitely some bugs here. So Command D to edit flow. Command D. Yeah, edit flow. Okay, so it worked that time. But the problem is when you've got two keyboard shortcuts. Well, basically the problem comes when you want to assign a keyboard shortcut that's already assigned. So like Control X there is going to clash with Control X up here, or Command X. It would be nice if there was a warning that you've entered in a keyboard shortcut that collides with something you already have. Yeah, so that's what we're going to do. So I'm just going to revert some of these. Revert. Yeah. So yeah, what we're gonna do is add in a notification that if have you typed in a keyboard shortcut that is already in use. That's what we're going to do. So I'm in, where am I? First I'm here. We're in the main Node-RED code repository under packages, node modules, at Node-RED. Come down into the editor client, which is all the clients, the editor side code, source, JS, where all the JavaScript lives, and under UI, keyboard.js. If you're following along at home, and if you're watching, then I assume you are vaguely following along at home. So this is the file that does all our keyboard handling. Here, in fact, I mentioned the bug we had about handling keyboard shortcuts with a plus in. Let me make that bigger so you can see. Oh, don't do that. Oh. One wrong click in Atom and it opens up all these windows, which I don't want it to do. Turn off that breakpoint. Yeah, so you can see here I map a symbol to what key code we see in the event, and you can see I've got 187, which is set for both the equal sign and the plus sign, and because on a QWERTY US or British English keyboard those two symbols do share the same key, so you get the same key code. Likewise, we have the question mark as 191, which is actually the same as the /. So that's, you can see I've added a note pointing out these are QWERTY specific fixes, but we'll worry about that another day. So what we're going to do in here, so this has got all the keyboard shortcut handling, both how we manage the shortcuts in the editor itself, but also the UI, the keyboard shortcut settings dialog UI. I think. I think we do in here. Yes, get settings pane, shortcut list, build shortcut row. I'm just sort of working backwards. So here's the function that gets called to build up, helps if I have it open, builds up each row in this table, it creates a label, it creates keys, the scope. I've gone past it then. Somewhere there is, oh no, okay, so it's a label, and then when you click on it like that, it modifies the row to be an edit dialog, and it does that by calling edit shortcut, which if I come up is here. Then somewhere in here there we go, so key input, so this is the input, which you can see here where we put stuff in. Now you can see it already goes red if I type garbage in. That's because in here we've got this code that whenever I get the key up event, as in I've typed something, and in fact what I'm also going to do, just from experience, I'm going to add paste as well, because if you paste some text into an input you don't get the key up event, but some users might want to paste a shortcut in, so we need to make sure this event handler happens on paste as well as key up. And yeah, you can see what it does is it gets the current value and it trims it, and then it's valid if it's blank because the user wants to leave it unassigned, or this utility function validate key that it's a valid keyboard shortcut specifier. So, because they have to be a particular format to specify sort of the different things. It doesn't like when you type garbage because it knows that's not a key, that's just garbage. But there's an extra test we want to do here, which is to say if it's valid, then what we want to do is, so we have the current value. What we want to do is see, does that current value actually, is there an existing handler for that current value? So if valid and current val is not blank, because we don't care if it's unassigned, so if it's an actual value, we need to find what that keyboard shortcut is. Now, this is where I'm going to delve into the console in the editor, because I can't remember what the functions are at our disposal. Clear that. So we can do red.keyboard. Now, let me just scroll through what's available to us. We've got, what does get shortcut do? Get shortcut. Okay, so get shortcut will do, yeah, you can see my history. I can do dashboard. Oop. So get shortcut takes the name of an action, which is what keyboard shortcuts are bound to, and it returns what the keyboard shortcut is. That's not quite what we want. What we want to do is to know, is there something in the existing key map that matches a yeah, sorry, I'm muttering a bit. I'm just trying to find it. Resolve key event. How do we want to do this? We've basically got to look through the list of all the handlers we've got. So here's add handler, which gets called when the user does edit something. And down. Yeah, this is, I think this is the magic, I think. Is that the magic? Because we don't actually store a list of all the keyboard shortcuts. It's that we can directly compare against. The list of keyboard shortcuts gets built into sort of a tree object that, as you press different keys, it's constantly trying to evaluate down the tree to see, does that sequence of key presses, is that a path through this tree, in order to that results in hitting an action that we know we want to evaluate. So what I'm going to do is, again, I could probably stick in a debugger here, but I'm just going to cheat and do allow us to delve into the internal data structures of the keyboard shortcut code. I can now do red.hand. So here you can see it's an object where all the keys are key codes that could get pressed, and as well as if they involve modifiers like Control-Alt-Shift. And why would Shift-Control-A exist down there like that? I'm not entirely sure. I can't remember all the logic that we have on this, to be honest with you. But what would be nice would be just a quick and easy way to evaluate, have we got the more I think of it, there must be a better way of doing this. I don't want to have to evaluate through that tree every time. I just want to check, is this a known keyboard shortcut or not? So, just thinking it through. So this is the code that gets called when we're opening up the settings dialog, and it gets the list of all the actions, sorts them into alphabetical order, and then adds each one of those into the table. And that's because we need to have all of the actions in this table, even if they're unassigned or not. So one option would be, well, it comes into build shortcut rows. Sorry, I realise I'm sort of muttering. I will freely admit now, this is one of those items I thought would be trivial, that we just need to compare a bit of text against a list of text and see does it exist or not. Now the challenge we've got is we've got the bit of text we want to look for, but we haven't immediately got a convenient place to compare it against. See, there's, I mean, the hacky way would be to just get, yeah. Okay, what we're going to do, known shortcuts, we're going to just maintain a set of these things. Is this going to be the ideal way of doing it? I don't know. Is this... Okay, known shortcuts, and then what we're going to do is build up a list. If s.key oh no, we should initialize known shortcuts. So whenever we open up this edit dialog, we'll just build up a set of all the keys we can see in that we can see are in use, and yeah, okay, then wherever I was up here, what we can say is valid equals, so it's a valid shortcut if it's not in our list of known ones. So has current val. Let's see how we fare with that. I mean, there's, yeah, this isn't all of it, but it's a starting point. So yeah, I'm just going to stick into here, Control C, and there you can see it's gone red because Control C exists. Now, interesting, if I do uppercase C, which in our keyboard handling is valid and would be treated as, because we do lowercase stuff, let's make sure we are always checking the lowercase version. So in here, Control C, okay, it goes red. If I did Command C, it doesn't go red because Control and Command are synonymous. That's going to be an edge case I'm going to live with for now. But yeah, at least it warns. Now, what we ought to do is also disable this tick box if this is invalid. So that's another bit of feedback. But something else I'm going to do is, let's say this was Control O, which we don't use anywhere. And then here I come and do Control O. It's not gone red. And it's not gone red because this list of known shortcuts, it only knows about the ones that were there when we opened up this dialog. It doesn't know about ones that have been added. So let's revert. Why that's interesting. That's not reverting. Have I broken something else somewhere? Interesting. That's not reverting at all. Oh, why won't that revert? I found, you go hunting for, try and fix one, you try and make one small improvement, and then you find all sorts of other bugs. Right, let's, one thing at a time. What we need to do, end edit shortcut, what we are doing here. So this is the code that gets called when we finish editing, and it's what updates the keyboard shortcut table. So in here we need to remove the old one and we need to add the new one. So here you can see is where we remove the previous shortcut. So that's where, oh no, don't want smileys, I want, can't remember what I called the variable now, known shortcuts. So this here is where we would be removing, is it remove? I've gone blank on JavaScript sets. Add, delete, no, it's delete, not remove. Okay, so that's where we remove the old one, and down here is where we add back the new one. So that's going to keep the table up to date as we add and remove stuff. Can use have the same key sequence for different scopes. Oh, Steve. Yes. So as you can see, we already do in the default key map have two different, we have the same key for different scopes, because that's entirely fine, because when you hit delete in the workspace, we delete nodes. When you hit delete with the the config node sidebar, we will delete your selection in the sidebar. So yeah, although I'm just right, I'm going to refresh because I would love to know why that Control O is not going away. Oh, it has now. Oh man, there's a bug. There's a bug. Right. Yes, this known shortcuts, it's crude and it will sort of work, but it's not going to work because it has to be tied to the scope as well. Yeah, it has to be tied to scope. Okay, well we can deal with that. What we can do is let me just remind myself what the variable is. Hold on, let's just collapse the code down. Does that make it any easier to find? Build shortcut row, that's what we want. Object.user key object.scope, there we are. Yeah. that right? Yeah, object.scope. So what we're going to do is when we build up the list of known shortcuts, we're going to do we're going to concatenate the scope and the key, which is fine. And then when we want to check against it, which is in edit shortcut, we want to get the current scope. What do we want to do? Because we muck around with work, yeah. Oh, there's some sort of edge cases which I'm not gonna. Possible scope values are star or red UI workspace. Okay. Yeah, that's all good. And what we need to do is scope select is the select box. Let me show you. It's this select box here, which, yeah, we only let you choose either global or the workspace. Again, if this was exposing all the functionality that was really there under the covers, this would be more free form and let you pick different components of the editor, but it doesn't. But it's good enough for now. But what we want to do is make sure we listen to a change event on that, because that's something, if that changes, then we want to trigger, you know what, for hits and giggles, because changing the scope would be something that can change the validity of the key input. So whenever we change the scope, we should also trigger the change function key input, so we'll revalidate that. Right, and then that code we added to add and delete, we want to make sure we delete the right thing. And make sure we add back in the right thing. So no shortcuts. Cool. There we go. Thanks, Steve. That you made a good point. So it's now the combination of scope and key, because it's fine to have the same keyboard shortcut, and I believe the code finds the most specific scope. So if you have a keyboard shortcut for just the workspace and a global one, the workspace one will handle it, the global one won't. It does the first match. So if we come in here now and let's say we set this to control capital C, that's not worked. Awesome. If I change that to workspace, okay, it was global and that's fine because you can see the one above is workspace. If I change that to workspace, I get the error because that now collides. But if I set it to global, it doesn't. Awesome. I believe I set that to workspace and do A. That clashes because you can use WASD to move nodes around in the editor. They're down here somewhere. In fact, to scroll the view, WASD. Cool. Good. We're getting there. So the only other thing is this. I think we should make this tick box disable. You shouldn't. Oh, okay. If I did Control C there with that set to workspace, yeah. So even though it was red, right? If I type garbage in here and it's red, I can hit OK, and it just ignores what the change I've made because it realizes it's invalid. So we could do that. Or we can disable the button because it's invalid. The problem is we don't have a cancel button. So if I came in here and did changed it to, oh, let's do Control R. Oh no, I want to go back to what I had it before. This revert button takes it back to the default value, not sort of cancels the current edit. And in fact, I'm hitting the escape key, if you can hear it, the clattering on my keyboard, and it's not cancelling the form. So we ought to add in escape handling as well, and escape should cancel. Okay, it's got a little bit more involved, but these all, I mean, it's all these little paper cut things of, you don't notice when this sort of stuff just works and behaves as you would expect. You notice this stuff when it doesn't behave as you expect. So it's always worth just trying to get some of this behavior right. Okay, so we've got the OK button. And what we're going to say here is OK button dot set disabled is that going to do it? Set the disabled attribute on the OK button if it's not valid. Let's see what that looks like. So if we set this to control, well, there you can see it's red, and you can see the button is disabled and I can't click on it. Set it to Control C, yep, it's going to let me click on it, but if I set that to workspace, it's not going to let me click it. Okay, well that's goodness. And then, so all I want to now do is get the escape key working. So here you can see we have got it set. Okay. Yeah. I've already got a key listener so that if you hit enter whilst you're editing this, it's the same as clicking the tick, so you don't have to move around so much. But of course, that's then bypassing this logic of it's bypassing the logic of whether the button's disabled or not. So what we need to do is let me just look at, yeah. Sorry, I'm just double checking. Revert button. Yeah, that's all good. So if it's keycode 13, then we can sort of cheat, and rather than redo the validation, we can test whether this has class input error. And of course, we only want to do this if it doesn't have input error. Okay, let's see what that does. So control, so it's got errors. There you go, I'm hitting enter and it's not submitting the form now, which is good. I guess this is another little gotcha, is you can actually set a keyboard shortcut that's just the control key. That's probably a bad idea, but okay, that's getting distracted yet again. What I'm just going to do here is, so we want to add in a support for hitting the escape key to cancel, do the same as the revert. And because I can never remember the key codes, there was a time in my youth I used to know a lot of the ASCII key codes off the top of my head. It's a piece of information I've happily let escape. So here you can see I'm just printing out into the console. Let me hit escape. 27. Yeah, now I see it. Of course it's 27. So we're going to say if it's a 27, someone's hit the escape key, then we're going to cheat, and we're going to trigger the click event on the revert button. Revert button trigger click, and we're not going to do anything else. Cool. So type, I hit escape and it reverts it. Oh, it doesn't. No. It's not revert, it's cancel. And that's an important difference, because revert will take it back. Yeah. So if I had a user defined one, like Control A to add a flow, if I start editing that and say, oh no, cancel, and I hit escape, it's reverted it back to the system default, not undone my changes. Okay, so I don't want to click the revert button. That was the wrong thing to do. I think what I can do is this end edit shortcut function, which all the other stuff, takes this optional argument called cancel. Because I think at one time I did have a cancel. I did have a cancel button. So we have got support in this function, but I don't think we use it at all, to end the editing of the shortcut, but treat it as a cancel, not an update. So that's very handy. It's past me to have written that code. So I should just be able to say end edit shortcut true. So I put in, well, it's got to be valid because of our other changes. I hit escape and that's worked. So now let's set it to, okay, so that's now a user assigned one. I come in and change it to, again, it has to be something valid. And then I hit escape and it's gone back to my user assigned one. Awesome. Cool. Well, that's the keyboard. Those are the fixes I wanted to do for the keyboard shortcut handling. What we're going to do is, no time like the present, prevent duplicate keyboard shortcut from being assigned. Push that straight in. I'm not going to do that as a pull request. That's a merge conflict, or not what have I missed? What did I merge today? Shouldn't escape work even if it's invalid? Good question. Yes, escape. Yes, you can see here my handling for hitting escape to cancel the edit doesn't care about input error. So yeah, good question. Thank you for making me double check that. And in fact, if we just go look in the editor, we can validate that. If I put in garbage and hit escape, it's cancelled. So we're good. Cool. So that's pushed. Yeah, and that was pretty much the last buglet I wanted to really address in time for 1.3. There's yeah, on this issue list, I mean, there's a few gnarly ones. Some are slightly bigger, which just going to take some time to fix up properly. So, but they're not, well, some are bigger functional changes that we're going to save for 2.0, and yeah, some can just be done in 1.3. Maintenance releases in the 1.3 stream. There is this one which needs more time and thought than I can give it on a live stream tonight, but this is with the MQTT node. By default, if the node, and this is how it's always been with the node, if it's not connected to the broker, then we discard any messages passed to it. We don't queue them up whilst the connection's down. That's how it's always been, but we did get this issue raised that even when they set quaz 1 and quaz 2, if you're not familiar with MQTT, quaz is the quality of service at which messages gets published at. There are 3 values. 0 is fire and forget, which means this message can be discarded at any time by any point in the network, client or broker. There's clause 1, which says send the message. You might get a duplicate message, but ensure it does get there. And then clause 2 is once and only once messaging, which says make sure it gets to the end destination no more than 1 time, and more than 0 times. So exactly once. So there is an expectation, if you do clause 1 or 2 messaging, that there is some sort of assurance that the message will get there. So it's not an unreasonable issue to have raised, even though it's never been the behavior of the node to do this. The underlying MQTT client we use does have built into it the ability to queue up messages internally. So there's a debate, it's not a change in behavior we can just drop in. It would have to be a new option in the node about what to do with offline messages. And actually it's a bit more complicated than that, because we also have to relate what's the life cycle of the message to the Node-RED messaging life cycle. So we have the complete node that will get triggered when a message has been sent. So we would still need the underlying MQTT client to tell us when it has eventually sent a given message, so that we could notify the messaging API that the message has been dealt with. So yeah, that's quite involved, and perhaps not one that I'm going to do at 5 to 9 after I've been talking about this stuff for 55 minutes. So yeah, okay, so that's 1.3. It's on the verge. There's none of these issues quite. Well, some are already fixed, they just don't reflect. Some we're just not able to reproduce, and some are going to be slightly longer term issues that we'll have to do in 2.0. So talking about 2.0, nice smooth segue. Yeah, we want to talk about Node-RED 2.0. We published a blog post a while ago. Blimey, July last year. Time does fly. Where we set out this timeline of how we want to handle Node-RED releases in order to try and keep them on a somewhat regular cadence, but also recognizing how we have to line up with Node.js timeframes in terms of what we support. There we go. Can we zoom? And this is the important picture. So the rough picture has us doing a milestone release, this sort of minor version number bump every 3 to 4 months, which does say 1.3 was due in mid to late January, and it's taken longer for all the sorts of reasons this blog post sets out, which is here's a timescale. Of course, we can only meet that timescale if we've got the warm bodies to deliver what needs delivering. So 1.3 has taken a bit longer because we've frankly not had the bodies available to deliver the work, and I've been doing just working through it, and also homeschooling and the general terrible state of the world. So I'm not going to beat ourselves up over that, but there is, even though 1.3 is later than we would like, there is still this immovable point of April the 30th when Node 10 reaches its end of life. So that's when we plan to ship Node-RED 2.0. And as it stands, the one stream will then move into maintenance mode for the year, where we will only backport fixes to 1.x. So on the whole, it will only ever be 1.3.x. It might be we end up doing a 1.4 if there's a a fix that has to, warrants a minor version bump, but any new substantial features will be targeted for 2.0. So whilst 1.3 has got the plugins framework in it and it's got things like that, there are other features we want to add for plugins, and there's new stuff which frankly will end up in the 2.0 stream. And again, this model assumes we've got the arms and legs available to help backport fixes. If there's no demand for people to have fixes both on 2.0 and 1. Whatever, then we'll only backport stuff if there's demand for it to be backported, and frankly if there are the people available to do the backporting. But we'll see how it goes. So the question is 2.0, it's a major version change. What do we want to do with 2.0? So I am, as we speak, in our Node-RED designs repo, which is kind of the sort of the meta repo we have in the project where we discuss designs, and these are sort of some of the stuff that's broader than just the core Node-RED. I am literally just raised issue 47, which is going to be a focal point for discussion about what is in Node-RED 2.0. And the tentative plan is we've created a projects board, confusingly in the Node-RED repo, not the designs repo, but so I may yet move it. Sorry, I'm still setting things up here. Edit. Yeah, that's not what I want to. How did I get to where I just was? Menu. Edit. There we are. Track progress. So the idea here now is we can drop things in here that are items that we know we want in the 2.0 release. Let's have a look. So, for example, somewhere we have this issue. Yeah. Okay. Back to our car. Right. So we use the request npm module for a lot of stuff in the core of Node-RED. That module has long since been end-of-lifed and has number of issues against it. It's a chore, and you can see it was flagged for 1.2 originally, but we need to move off request. But because we expose so much of what request does via the request node, there's no drop-in replacement for it. So there's quite a lot of development work to be done to move to a maintained HTTP request library, but also try and maintain as much of the external APIs as possible. But it's entirely possible that we'll miss something or something will change, and that's going to be a drag, but it's a perfect example of something we can do in 2.0. There was another issue around support multiple instances running on the same domain. So because of the way we store access tokens in the editor, you can't actually run two instances of Node-RED on the same domain on different paths. They have to be on separate subdomains. Now, okay, that could be fine as a restriction, but actually there are some other good reasons to change how we store this login tokens in the editor, so that's something for 2.0. Now there are, I'm sure if I go through this list there will be others, and this is part of the work, so the project management side of stuff to do over the next next short while is things like, in fact, this issue. Where's my board? There is the version of bcrypt we use is again out of date. Unfortunately, the version that fixes some security issues that we don't believe we're exposed to given how we use it, but it has already dropped support for Node 10, so we've been stuck, but that's a priority for updating once we can drop Node 10. So we're kind of, what we want to do is a bit of a pick and choose, pick and mix of, there are some issues here that are they are bug fixes that require a bit more work than, or change how we do things, or sorts of things that we don't want to do just in a maintenance release. So like the MQT messages one, so Steve, Monaco, I think you may have missed, because I sort of went through some of the pull requests right at the start of the stream, talking through them, and I talked a bit about Monaco. Monaco is something we won't consider until 2.0, and then if it goes into 2.0, even then it will be behind a feature flag to enable. But there's a slightly bigger discussion in terms of coming up with a plan for what that strategy is going to be for the Monaco work. The other thing I have to be mindful of is we're still 1.3 is going to go out, hopefully the beta this week. It's going to be a couple more weeks, hopefully maybe 3 weeks before we get to the final release, and there's still a lot of documentation and other stuff going on to get 1.3 done. So by the time 1.3 is out the door, we'll be down to about 5 weeks until 2.0 is planned. I have some vacation to take, not that I'm going anywhere, but so I've also got to be mindful in terms of what's the development resource we have available in order ahead of an end of April date for 2.0. So that's why we're starting this discussion now is, okay, let's get on this wish list. What's the work we know we need to do? Some will be must do for 2.0. Some will be, it doesn't have to be done for 2.0, but it has to be done in the 2. something time frame. And Monaco is definitely in the 2. something time frame. So for Monaco, for those who aren't familiar, Monaco is a text editor, an alternative text editor. Is it the one used in VS Code? I can never remember. So Monaco is an alternative text editor widget, and Steve in the chat has done. Oh, you were kidding, okay, but still, it's much more actively developed than Ace is. Even though Ace has been acquired by, or the company who look after Ace have been acquired by AWS a couple of years ago. I hoped that would kind of kickstart and revive some of the work they were doing, but it's still somewhat languishing. So there's a lot to be said for updating to Monaco. One of the drawbacks is, I know it sounds funny to say, and I do say it each week, Monaco doesn't support IE 11. So we're trying not to break IE 11 until 2.0. So that's just another one of those reasons why 2.0 is the minimum version. And IE 11 is going to disappear later this year. Even Microsoft I forget, they're doing something drastic about it later this year, but we know there are members of the community who ask us to keep IE11 working, and even if sometimes their pull requests break that request, and I have to remind them that they want us to keep it working. So anyway, yeah. So then there's a bunch of other stuff that Dave and I have been talking about, and I'm just going to... we don't have specific issues for, but I'm just going to add in notes so we don't forget it. Function external modules switch default to true. So this is the new function of npm modules in the function node. In 1.3 it's going to be turned off by default. We're going to turn it on by default in 2.0. I know Dave has got a list. He's been building a list of some things like that we want to do. So really the call to the community is if you can think of any changes in behavior you'd like us to consider, that we'd normally say no, because we can't change behavior like that. 2.0 is an opportunity to probably say no, because we don't want to change behavior, but there will be some specific things, and often it will be like default settings in nodes, so not changing the behavior of anything existing, but changing the default so that a new node dragged on from the palette might have a different default configuration that's kind of a bit more usable, a bit more amenable to how people want to use it. Yeah. So that's, there's a lot more. This is just the start of trying to build up this list, because then, as I say, given the actually relatively short timescale, and given lots of other stuff that's going on in terms of just availability and the ability to focus on this stuff over the next couple of months, I think trying to get this list into some sort of shape is a priority at the moment. So see, the split node should default to key value. In what sense? Because it does, if you pass it an object, it will default to sending a message for each. Oh, you mean that on the join side? So, oh, you mean change that to be key value by default? Yeah, that's probably a reasonable. Yeah, how often do you actually want to combine into a string convert? Yeah. Yeah, no, at this point, this is a list of ideas, and I think we will evaluate them. Yeah, well, it's on the list. Yeah, and if there are other things in there, yeah, and it, like I said, the main thing is just we need to be careful where we draw the line, focusing on those little changes in defaults that the defaults we ought to have had in place from the start. I think one of the areas one of the areas we need to look at closely is security, and is there a different default set of settings we should provide to be more secure by default? Can we try and enforce admin auth in a default vanilla install in some way? I don't know. I mean, we've looked at this before and not come up with good answers. Partly because if you have a default username and password, well, everyone knows the default, so it's as good as not having a default username and password. But yes, And it's also trying to separate out, there's the Node-RED that I guess most of you install and use as an end user versus Node-RED that gets embedded in onto other people's platforms and that sort of thing. So there might be some default behaviors we apply to when you npm install Node-RED and run it locally that's different to sort of vanilla Node-RED that's embedded in someone else's application. So we might have more latitude to have a default settings file that maybe a first time run, if you haven't provided a custom settings file, the first time you run it you get a welcome screen with a prompt to set up security before you carry on. So I don't know, these are just ideas that have sort of cropped up from time to time but never quite got anywhere because we didn't want to make that sort of change. But 2.0, it's an opportunity to talk about that sort of change. So if you have any other ideas, like I said, this is just to show you where this list is going to live in the Node-RED repository. Well, okay, so confusingly I've raised this discussion item on the designs. I'm trying to work out how we can have better design discussions, and the designs repo tries to do that. So I'm aware that so Node-RED repository projects in the middle there's the Node-RED 2.0 board, and that's where you can see it. But of course none of you can add anything to this list. What you guys can do is come over to the Node-RED designs repo, and in fact it's the only issue on the list, and you can add comments to this issue. So this is the best way, and I'll post this to the forum as well later, and invite comment, and I'm sure people in the forum will have plenty of comments. But trying to capture things and discussion in this issue, and then the things that we in the sort of the project leadership feel kind of meet the right sort of grade for 2.0, we can copy into the board, either get an issue raised to track the individual item or add in some notes for the time being, like I have for these two items. That's all good. So one of the other things we're going to set up and start doing are regular calls, like once every 2 weeks, maybe once a month is probably not often enough. Going to do public calls, basically same as this, except hopefully have other people to talk and discuss, so that, again, excuse me, looking at how we can get more people involved, contributing into the core of Node-RED, have a regular development team call. And for example, part of that will be to review this board, discuss progress, who's doing what, that type of thing, and have a call that anyone can join and be part of that conversation. So the challenge is, as ever, trying to work out a time for that call that works, given the global nature of our contributors. We've talked about this before. It's a bit of a challenge, given we've got a bunch of contributors in Japan. We've got some contributors on the west coast of America. We've got people interested in Europe who are an hour ahead of me here in the UK. So we pretty much and there's a guy in Australia who's interested as well. And that spans all 24 hours of the day. So trying to pick a regular time slot is it's a challenge. It's interesting. It's really interesting actually to see how many projects do the typical late afternoon, early evening in Europe, Central Europe, UK. So it's morning, 8 a.m, 9 a.m, West Coast. That seems to be the standard sort of time frame, and with absolutely no regard for people over in Japan or further over that way. So I'd love not to perpetuate that because we've got some great contributors in Japan. But yeah, trying to solve that insolvable, intractable problem has kind of stalled my thinking into how to set this up. So at some point we will just set that up. So if you're interested, we will work out the logistics of it once we've worked out the time schedule of it. It'll be like a Google Meet or something, a Zoom call or something. But the goal will be, it's not just me presenting for an hour about what's going on. It will be, we will probably in the designs repo that have there'll be a clear agenda for the call. Part of that agenda, for example, at the moment will be to review the 2.0 planning, and if there are particular points for discussion that need discussing in person, then we'll have some labels so issues can be raised on the designs repo that need discussing, and if they need discussing on the call, we'll have a label and they can get labelled to get on the agenda for the next call. It's something like that, so we can actually, so that anyone can raise an item that needs discussing on the call, but it also gives a place to record decisions, a place to record outcomes, that type of stuff. And I'm desperately keen for it not to just be another call that I spend an hour talking and people are just listening what's Nick got to say, because that's not the goal of the call. So yeah, rotating schedule is an option. Just trying to share out the pain. Yeah, that's probably what we'll end up doing. Have a some sort of rotating schedule. But I'm going to talk to our friends in Japan tomorrow actually. So see what their preference would be, because it may well be if the call is recorded, or if the discussions are clearly tracked also in GitHub issues, that they're happy to, because there is the challenge over the language barrier as well, and sometimes those calls can be and this is from experience of doing calls somewhat regularly with our friends in Japan. There tends to be a preference for written communication because it works better when it's not your primary language. So anyway, these aren't new problems. Plenty of people have solved them. It's just trying to work out what works best. So what we're going to do, 9:20. Let's see, I always like to just dip into the forum, see if there's anything new, if there's anything to glean from it. We do get a huge amount on the forum. Let's see, I always like to just dip into, this is new, I'll have to look at that. This is always makes me chuckle. So we pay for 500,000 page views a month, and we're currently on 1.1 million page views a month. So at some point I do expect the very kind folk at Discourse to come knocking on our door and say, could you pay us a little bit more? But look, there's lots of new features in Discord. What's going on? Topic slow style. I'm intrigued by what's topic slow mode. That sounds like something interesting. Okay, that's not entirely helpful. I assume it's topic slow mode even more. No, there's no mention of slow mode in that release. What about this release? Well, that's at least something I try and make sure we do, is good release notes, because you can't say there's a new thing called topic slow mode, link me to a bunch of release notes, and then I can't find any reference to slow mode in your release notes. Oh, I give up. Well, at least I give up trying to find that in front of you lot. I'm sure there's going to be something interesting there. I was about to go check my work email in front of you. That's not something I should do. I'm just trying to think, is there anything else I can usefully do? You know what? I'm going to merge some pull requests. So the function node, external modules stuff, I mean, it's all good. It's all ready to go. Oh, Travis build has failed, but I bet you it's just node 8 has failed, and I bet you it's either the delay node or... Oh, no. Ooh. Oh, I know why that broke. Okay, so here's what we're doing now. I broke it without thinking. Let's go into the function modules branch, and I say I know why it broke. I've got two theories. So I've toggled the default behavior about function nodes being allowed to load modules, but I didn't change the unit tests. And yeah, sure enough. So function spec 1459. So let's just see that failure for ourselves. Make this window a bit bigger so you can see it. Sometimes I wish when I zoom in an item it wouldn't make the window bigger. I just want to zoom the text but keep the window the same size, because anyway. So Mocha, I haven't done that now, it's my prompt's too big. Mocha test nodes core function, is it 10 function spec.js. So run, and boom. Okay, so let's go have a look. So that has gone boom, should require the OS module. So this is trying to use the new functionality, and it has failed, and it's failed because my settings aren't set up to allow it to do that, because I've changed the default to not allow. Yeah, okay, so let's just think through, how do we inject custom settings? I can't remember how we inject custom settings. Oh, is this going to be another one of those quick fixes that turns out to be helper? Do we have okay, I'm going to have to go remind myself, how do we load in custom settings into the test helper? There we go. So this is the test helper that we use for testing nodes. I did a session on it a few streams ago. And we init, where do settings come from? There, this.settings. Is it really as easy as that? Cool. So, where are we? Line 1459, I think it was failing. Yeah, should require the OS module. What we can do is helper.settings and say function external modules true. And then let's rerun those tests. Yay, 91 passing. Cool. So that's fixed the test. But of course, you don't just want a test that well, that's goodness. What we need to do is, though, make sure it still fails like it was failing, if that makes sense. So we want to make sure that you can't suddenly start using without this setting set. So should fail if using OS module without function external modules set to true. Okay, so that's all going to work, which is good. Because so this is the same test that we had before, which because it doesn't have, well, oh no, right, we've got to add in a properly configured function node. So here we have a function node with this new libs property, which says expose the OS module as a local variable called OS. So that's properly configured, but because the setting is, we've not changed function external modules from its default, the test should fail. And what the test is doing, I've got two nodes, N1 the function node we're testing, and N2 a helper node. We load that flow into the test helper. We then listen on the helper node for it to receive any messages, and we just set a flag to true if we receive something. We then pass a message into M1. We then wait 20 milliseconds just to let anything flush out, and after 20 milliseconds nothing should have been received by N2 because the node should have been blocked. There might be better tests here, but that's good enough just to show this function node isn't passing anything on because it's not been allowed to start because it's trying to use external modules when it's not allowed to. Here we have a test that this is trying to use the OS module, but it's not. It doesn't have this libs property, so OS doesn't mean anything to it, and we still expect that to fail, and that's fine. Except for absolute correctness, we're now going to set, even in this test case, we want the only reason it's failing is because it has not got the libs property on the node. So we need to set that to true to enable the feature at all. Should require an OS module, so we're setting it to true, and that's good. Should fail if module variable name clashes with the sandbox built-in. So again, we need to make sure we set this true here, otherwise what we're actually testing is not, well, yeah, we're not testing the right thing. Okay, so those can receive null. Okay, have I got too carried away? Oh, so why is that? Why is N1 null? Have I screwed up somewhere? Yes, I've screwed up somewhere, but why would I have screwed up somewhere? So how is that in any way different from this test down here, other than function external modules is false? If I set function modules to true, now this test should fail. Yeah, expected true to be false because it's worked. We expected it not to work. But for some reason we were getting a null error. What's it going to do? Cannot receive property of null. And if I just scroll up, because I did console.log, they're null. So why is N1 null at this point? Let's just go look at what the function node does. So its function external modules is this new setting. We want that to be false as well. Sorry, I'm just muttering to myself about a lot of things. Right, yep, I've got it. So when we construct the node, this is the function node constructor, we check if it's got a node.libs property with a length greater than 0, which is to say it's trying to use external modules. But if that's the case and the function external modules setting is not equal to true, then we throw an error saying this function node is not allowed to use external modules. And with the test helper, if you throw an exception in the node constructor, the node won't exist. So in fact, it's the same test case as we have down here, where we try to load it, and the node should not exist as a result because it's an invalid configuration. So in fact, that makes this test far easier. We'll do it if I paste in the right place. Yeah, because of this, N1 should not exist, and that's frankly, that's what was causing the test to fail. That was the behavior we were seeing. I was just testing for it in the wrong way. There we go, 92 passing. Happy days. Yeah, cool. So we're gonna commit them up. So we fixed up the tests, and I also fixed, a default value I'd overlooked. Yeah. Fix function external modules tests. Push. Cool. All right, so that's going to fix the unit tests. And what I'm going to do, so I'm going to be running the unit tests a lot over the next couple of days just to sanity check a lot of things. I'm now going to merge this in. Because, I just had that moment of panic of I didn't double check what branch we were merging into, but no, it's merged into dev, which is the right thing to do. And I'm going to delete the branch because we're done with it. So go back to dev, get pull, and then what I can do is git branch -d function modules, because we're done with it. I can't remember which PR is which, so by closing that we've also closed let's have a look. It was a draft. I think went back a while. Draft, here it is, 2815. Nope, I had already got rid of that PR branch, but that's all goodness. Function modules can go, library plugins can go, yeah. This is just tidying up my local branches. Theme key map can go. Disable groups. Have I done that? Oh yeah, I've done that. So the great thing with git branch -d, it will only delete that branch if all of the commits of that branch exist in the branch I'm currently in, or in head. Anyway, if I try to delete a branch that's not fully merged, it will tell me off. So thankfully, that's not a mistake I've made for a while. I have made it before. There's nothing like the warm feeling of deleting a branch of code you hadn't actually. Turns out it was the only copy of that code. Stop order, that's done, isn't it? Anyway, literally you guys watching me tidy up my local branches is probably on a par with watching paint dry. So pull request. So we've just got, in terms of 1.3, in my head, there is a line here, so we just need to sort out these German translations. So if any of you are native German speakers, it would be great if you could cast a glance over Heikoku's contribution here. It does change 49 files. And as you can see, he's done a lot of work, and I'm in no position to say, well, this is better German than that. So, yeah, that's going to need some love from the German community. So if you're out there, please do come and give us a hand. Cool. Where are we at? So just running down these issues. I mean, this first one, MQT drops messages with the topic starts with $1. Not being able to reproduce that myself. Sometimes this does catch users out with MQTT, but hash, when you subscribe in MQT, is the wildcard that matches all topics, except it does not match topics that begin with $1. So the dollar is a what's this? Perhaps a PR to add proper international relations support into a single text file for each language would be good. What do you mean, Steve? I don't quite follow that. A single text file for each language. Yeah, do you want to expand on that one? I'm not fully following it. But on this issue, yeah, so for this user, they're trying to use our nodes with AWS Greengrass, which has a particular set of topic structures that you subscribe and publish to, and they're not seeing they're not seeing the updates. Now, I can't recreate that. I can test, I've tested it against Mosquito locally, and it all behaves as per the spec. So yeah, that's kind of, in fact, yeah, just to help keep track of it, that one is needs info because it's not one yet, I acknowledge. So typed input change event incorrect value, so that is fixed. The issue will get closed automatically when we merge dev to master. Config node is destroyed before other nodes on redeploy. So this is an interesting one, which is also fixed in dev. When we start up flows, we do a bunch of work to make sure we start up configuration nodes before we start up flow nodes. This was a bug that noticed when we stop a flow, we don't do the reverse. We just stop things in the order that they exist. So config nodes could get stopped before flow nodes. So did some rework in, so we now stop things in the reverse order, which is good. There's an issue around the custom middleware we have. So you can add in custom middleware to admin. Trouble is, if you've got both admin and the nodes on the same route, which they are by default, because the admin route handler receives requests first to decide, does that request match any of my routes? Then it passes to the node handler. It means middleware that is attached to admin will get applied to the request before it gets passed down to the nodes, which is a drag when you want to do stuff around authentication and that type of thing. So the normal answer is actually, if you're running in a proper environment, you want to separate out admin, put it on its own subpath so it's away from the root. And that's one of those things, actually, now I think of it, on our list of 2.0 features, do not use hostname in flow file name. So that's, again, one of my long-standing bugbears is we use, by default, if you don't hard code the flow file name, we'll use your system hostname as part of the flow file name, which is a real pain when you're on well, when you change hostname and suddenly all your flows disappear. And certain DHCP environments might, if I move my laptop between home and work, it might get a different DNS name from the local DHCP setup. So anyway, I'm surprised that wasn't the first thing I thought of actually when we looked at that. But yes, this custom middleware. Actually, yes, this is more a docs thing because it's going to be quite hard to separate out. But maybe for 2.0, we move the default path of the editor away from / and move it to like /admin or /edit or something. Again, it's one of those changes of behavior that we can only really consider on a 2.0 or a major version bump. This is one about projects feature and opening up a newly cloned project. If it's encrypted credentials in that project, there was some problems with the workflow in that you have the open dialog, you open the project, in the background you would get the notification that the credentials could not be decrypted, but this open project dialog would stay open. Now I fixed that part of it. The problem this user's reported though on top of that is they've then gone into project settings, as this toast dialog suggests you should do, to enter in the correct credential encryption key. But for the life of them they can't get that to work. So they set the new encryption key but it doesn't decrypt and they're stuck. Now, unfortunately, I've not been able to reproduce that. For me, that workflow, as I've just described, works. So you open up the new project, it doesn't know about the credentials, you then go in project settings, enter in the new credential, and you're away. So, yeah, still need to try and understand what's different about their environment and where I've tried to do it myself here. Now this is an interesting one which has a pull request associated with it, which is merged. Oh, and it's merged into dev. Okay, good. So that means this one we can label as fixed. So GitHub will automatically close issues when a commit associated with them gets merged into master, and because we fix stuff, because that's been fixed in dev rather than master, it's not. So I just label them as fixed just to sometimes I will go and close them, but I label them as fixed as sort of an interim. So there's the messages lost that I talked about when you use quas 1 or more. There's this one about the CSV node mishandling column names. I know we've had some problems with the CSV node. Oh, look. So, but yeah, I need Dave to come back. I also need Dave to learn the mnemonics. You don't. So GitHub will automatically, it's spotted that it's referenced this issue, but Oh no, this commit closes issue. Okay, so okay, I take that back, Dave. I apologize. It's not quite how. Yeah, GitHub is smart enough to realize this commit closes the issue, and again, that commit's gone into dev. So, but we did have some problems merging some changes to the CSV node. So I think I do need Dave just to reconfirm whether this is the issue that has been unfixed, or that's the one that's still good. Bcrypt v5, that's definitely a 2.0 one. Can I use admin dashboard at the same time on Safari? Scanning through. Oh yeah, this is a really weird. It's a bug with Safari, or I say a bug. It's a policy of Safari which makes it somewhat worse. But they if you use basic authentication. Yeah, if you've got basic authentication on a domain, they seem to automatically insert those credentials even if you set a different authorization header on the request. they will overwrite that with the basic auth, and it just breaks stuff. Oh, man. That one's fixed. This one we need more info on. This is a pain. So with our HTTP and HTTP response nodes, if you if content type header, HTTP header is set, you might set it to like application JSON because you're sending back JSON or whatever. When it gets to the far end, the actual header is set to like application JSON semicolon char set equals UTF-8, which is syntactically 100% valid, and it's what the spec says content type could look like and is allowed to look like. Problem is, some services don't adhere to the spec, and surprisingly Twilio being one of them, and they do not like having this char set part in content type, and it was odd, but it wasn't. Turns out it's not us. The Express, the HTTP framework we build on top of, automatically add that, and in a typical opinionated way, there was a security vulnerability that was raised a long time ago. 7 years ago. Well, six and a half years ago. Where if you don't set char set, you can theoretically do something nasty. So Express took the decision, because it was a security vulnerability, they would always set content type. Always set char set. And you can see a whole load of linked issues, including our own, where people are saying, well, but things are breaking. Things are breaking because of that. But lots of libraries have fixed it. It's just one of those, it's a shame there's no way to disable it. But if it's a security vulnerability, what can you do? So, yeah. But also I recognise if people want to use a third-party API that don't adhere to the spec, saying, well, go tell them to fix their implementation, is kind of pointless, because I'm sure they've heard that complaint before and they haven't fixed it. So it's either, well, what can you do? What can you do? It's a pain. You've got to be pragmatic sometimes with this stuff. That one's fixed. Inject node not executing at specified time. Yeah, the inject node seems to play up for some people. It just doesn't quite trigger at the right time. So I did look at that the other day. The cron plus node is Steve's cron plus node is seems much more stable, and occasionally people say how they've had to move over to cron plus and it's just worked for them. And the cron module we use has a growing list of issues against it. There seems to be this one particular bug that, for whatever reason, they've introduced and they've not rolled back, and it's just raking up issues against it. So I think we need to move our inject node over to a different cron library, and given the success that the cron plus node has, then there's a lot to be said for just using the same module that it uses. So in fact 2833, let's add this. Is it a 2.0 thing, or is it a bug fix we should look at doing? No, I'm going to put it on here for now. Do it. Add cards 2833, because I think changing the underlying library we use is the sort of thing that we don't want to just well, it needs some more focus than just doing in a maintenance release. Where did I get to? Unhandled promise rejection during runtime. Yeah, so this is going to be something that gets more prevalent as more people start using Node 15 or indeed Node 16. Basically, there's a new way that the default is going to cause the runtime to stop if there's some certain types of bugs around promises. So we need to spend some time bug hunting them and making sure we haven't got any lurking in our own code. They're a real bugger to try and inspect and find. But yeah, that's something we need to do. More stuff. Yeah. And again, we start getting down into a bit more of the long tail of issues. Yeah, at some point, if we haven't fixed them by now, or yeah, how likely are we to ever get to them? Every now and then I do trawl through the whole set of issues, and you sort of see the earlier they are, where they are just stuff that if we haven't done by now, are we realistically going to suddenly implement? I mean, some are genuine enhancements. They are valuable. A lot of them have now been captured on our Trello board, so we have got them captured. They are on the wish list. Yeah, they're all buried in here somewhere. And in fact, this is another good place we should go look at 2.0 concepts. Yeah, you see this odd stuff like do not use hostname when determining flow file name. Yep, 2.0, and other things along the way. Cool. Well, I've been going for 2 hours. I think that's a long one. Hopefully that's interesting. There's plenty going on, plenty to do. But the key thing is, want to get 1.3 out, the beta out this week. Then we can, Flappy, we are wrapping up. End of a couple of hours here. So, 1.3 beta, hopefully in the next couple of days, maybe even tomorrow. And continue the discussion around 2.0. So if you do have any suggestions on 2.0, do add them to this GitHub issue on the designs repo, although I will post a link and sort of prompt to the community to share their thoughts in the next couple of days as well. And yeah, I think that will do. That's a good couple of hours. I think it's time for a cup of tea. So thank you all for joining. If you have watched YouTube for 2 hours of me prattling on, well done. I imagine you skipped through lots of it. But yeah, if you've got this far, then do leave a comment saying you've stuck through to the bitter end, because it's always heartening to see. And otherwise, don't forget to say hi on Slack. I still do my office hours on Fridays if you want to book some time with me to talk about something interesting about Node-RED. So calendly.nullery. Pick a time. Fridays, anytime during the day in the UK, 25 minutes. Book some time. Have a chat about anything Node-RED you're interested in. But of course, I'm always on Slack. Always in the forum. And I'm always here Mondays, 8 p.m. UK time. And that's probably enough for tonight. So, have a good rest of your evenings or days, wherever you are in the world. And I'm going to say good night. See you later.